I don't think we talk about enough how uncomfortable it can feel to be alone with yourself. Not lonely, but alone. No notifications, no one to impress, no one to distract you from your own thoughts. And I think that's why a lot of us avoid it. We fill the silence with noise, people, scrolling, background videos, anything, because sitting with ourselves can feel quite exposing. For me personally, I've found that when I don't enjoy my own company, it often leads to one of two things. You either chase constant distraction or you attach your happiness with other people. And neither of those really last. So this isn't about becoming some monk who lives on their own 24/7, but it's more about becoming or getting to a place where being on your own doesn't feel so heavy. And for me, I have 3 steps that help me out with this a lot. Step 1, date yourself. I know this sounds cringe, but just hear me out for a minute. Most of us are happy to show up for other people, make plans, get nicely dressed, put effort in. But when it comes to just ourselves, we just rot. For me, I think that if we only ever do things when someone else is there, we're basically teaching ourselves that our own presence isn't really enough. And I think that's a dangerous habit because if you can't sit with yourself, you start outsourcing your happiness to friends, to plans, to any sort of distraction. Dating yourself isn't about saying you don't want anyone else, but it's more about, like, I think, telling your nervous system that you're safe here even when you're on your own. I think start small, go for a coffee on your own, go watch that movie that you wanted to see, but you're waiting to watch it with someone else. Go to that food place at the end of the week, treat yourself, share these moments with yourself. And at first, I know it may feel awkward and like people are watching you, but they probably ain't. And even if they are, you can't live a life looking at yourself through someone else's eyes. And I think overall, being comfortable with yourself is probably one of the most confident things you can do. Now to step 2, finding something you can disappear into. Here's the truth that people don't often say, is that you don't need this big do all and end all passion. You just need something you can kind of get lost in, something you can progress with, something where you enter that sort of flow state and time flies by when you're not checking your phone every 5 minutes and when you're not performing for anyone else. I know for me, I struggled a lot with this because when people would say, go find your passion, I'd automatically think it'd have to be something productive, something that I can get a career out of at the end of it, something that has to lead me somewhere, and it doesn't. Some people find this passion in the gym, in music, in arts, in drawing. Some even find it in making YouTube videos that no one's asked for. And the thought that helped me with finding this particular activity was from Robert Greene, where he said to look into your childhood and look at what sort of things made you as a kid, your eyes widen or you sit forward in your chair. And, try to avoid the things that maybe that were pushed on by your parents or you did to get approval or to fit in with your friends. Try and look at things that on your own you genuinely had a real interest in. I know for him, he talks about at school, they were given a string of letters and they had to make as many words with those letters as possible. And for him, that blew his mind and led him down his career of writing. For me, I know when I was little, watching YouTubers was something that really excited me, that the idea that someone could connect an audience across the world just through these self-made videos. Hence what has led me down this road. But again, this could be anything. This could be storytelling, this could be drawing, this could be an interest in a niche sport or a niche anime. It could be anything. With a bit of self reflection and noticing why, in particular, you were drawn to this individual activity, because spending time alone gets a lot easier when you're not going one on one with your thoughts the entire time. Sometimes it's obviously good to, but sometimes it's good not to as well. And this often is where enjoying your own company actually starts, where being with yourself doesn't feel so intimidating or empty, and it starts to feel quiet, spacious. Now, on to my final step, step three. Listen to yourself like you'd listen to someone you love. This one sounds small, but for me, it absolutely changed everything. I find that a lot of us, we're weirdly quite harsh on ourselves. We interrupt our own thoughts, we dismiss how we feel, and we tell ourselves a lot of the time just to get on with it. But think about how you'd listen to someone you cared about. You wouldn't rush them, you wouldn't minimize it, you wouldn't scroll while they're talking, you wouldn't just tell them just to get on with it. And we are and should be someone we care deeply about. I always think, if we met ourselves and there was a carbon copy of ourselves stood right in front of us, and you knew all they'd been through, all the hardships and all the days they've struggled with, you wouldn't be so hard on that individual. We'd be a lot more compassionate, I feel, and we'd give ourselves a lot more time. We abandon our thoughts halfway through. We don't let feelings finish their sentences. And then we wonder why being alone feels so tense. And so, why do we do that to ourselves? And for me, journaling helped me out a lot. And I know as soon as we hear the word journaling, a lot of us probably get quite uncomfortable with that thought and think, no, that's not for me. And trust me, just give it 5 minutes and it could be a waste of time or it could work. And no, not like an aesthetic journaling, but a real journaling. Writing down, I don't know why I feel off today, but I do. And even at the bare minimum, you're letting that thought be heard. If you want to go another step with it, journaling's a great way to find out why we have certain behaviors. Starting with why you're feeling off and then letting your mind take you on a certain route and trust that route for why you might be feeling off. Certain triggers, certain things from childhood, certain traumatic events that may have happened in your life. It's great to figure out where these behaviors come from because through that, then you can start to control them a little bit better. And don't get me wrong, this takes time and takes persistence, but it can be very lucrative and beneficial. As said, even at the minimum, you're just letting your thoughts be heard. And that's where your own company becomes somewhere you can stay instead of somewhere you're always trying to escape. And to wrap it all up, enjoying your own company won't mean you won't want other people, but it's saying you don't always need them to feel okay. And that changes everything. Because when you're comfortable alone, connections become a choice, an addition, not a coping mechanism or a requirement. And as I said, I'm no expert, and this is just what's helped me personally. And if it can help one of you a little bit, that's not too shabby. But no, start dating yourself.